Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you very much, Mr. Giegel, for the inspiration. Obviously, always good to be in Berlin. I think for many in my generation, going to Berlin is also remembering that the wall came down, that change is possible. Where you didn't believe it ever to come, it turned out to be possible. I will not play any lotto this year because I'm so lucky that my 2 planes needed are the only ones not cancelled. Others, I know, Olivier, he will have to go back to Brussels by train. And he will do that exclusively in a European-built train. We just revisited the Siemens Alstom, now here more than 5 years after. And it turns out that the Chinese are still in China. In any market that matters in trains, they are not in the global market. Actually, the 2 leading providers when it comes to, for instance, high-speed trains are Siemens and Alstom. So they thrive with competition. I want to go in deep in some of the areas that has been mentioned already. A lot has changed these 35 years since the wall came down. Around that time, 35 years ago, some of us got the first personal computer. A few years later, we could actually connect that to this exciting internet. It was a promising world of those days. It was full of opportunities, had we only known. Since then, the internet has evolved into a fully digital economy dominated by few giants. And with their leapfrog innovation, they were able to jump ahead of competitors in markets that at those times were open and contestable. They created to-go platforms that came to work like essential facilities for many, many users and businesses. And in recent years, they developed entire ecosystems through organic growth or by shopping around. You know, the kind of shopping you only see sort of in Sex and the City with lots of bags. Hundreds of companies. And sure, those ecosystems can be very convenient for users. But the question, of course, is what is the cost when it comes to competition? The case for competition has just been made as eloquently as anyone can ever wish for. And I hope that you will make a couple, Bushman and Giegel, to travel Europe to make sure that everyone realizes that any discussion about competitiveness implies vibrant competition. Because that fundamental driver is what makes any other initiative worthwhile. That be skills or subsidies or access to research and innovation systems. Because there is a cost to competition. Because some of those giants, they were once champions of open markets. Now they have the power to decide, to squeeze out competitors, to stifle innovation. And some markets, they've already tipped in favor of the dominant player. So to tackle those issues, we've been looking at ways of effectively protecting competition in digital markets. It's a common endeavor. It's the Commission, it's the national competition agencies. We've been in this together. So today, just diving a bit into how we have been dealing with digital mergers. It is, I think, a unique challenge that is being thrown at us with digital markets. First of all, because digital services typically becomes part of a larger ecosystem. Such ecosystems, they are difficult to fit into traditional market definition. So we had to develop a new approach to take account for the complex interplay between different products that make up a digital ecosystem. And in the Google Android judgment, the EU General Court, I think, actually gave us thumbs up to this approach. And in that approach, we define digital ecosystem markets as complementary and as interconnected. And this precedent is not only relevant within antitrust, it applies to mergers too. And we have reflected that in our new market definition notice. The second challenge for competition authorities are the strong network effects and the benefits gained from data access that we often see in digital mergers. And they give rise to very specific risks. In our practice, in broad terms, we see two strategies that can create competition concerns. The offensive strategies, where the acquirer uses the merger to leverage market power from its core market to neighboring markets, expanding its ecosystem, potentially shutting out future rivals. And also defensive strategies, where the acquiring company buys the target to protect its core market, to become even more entrenched as to where they are with their ecosystem. The third challenge that the new tech companies often bring is that it takes a long time to make a substantial sale. You can have companies who are very successful, but they really do not make any money. As a result, important digital mergers may slip under the radar. And especially in the digital economy, these new firms, they could be very important digital disruptive innovators and, of course, an important source of competition as they grow, as they tag along. And so, when a big tech firm acquires a high-value startup that doesn't hit the revenue threshold, we can end up missing something that may be problematic. To plug this gap, in 2001, we issued new guidance on member states' referrals under Article 22 of the merger regulation. And the new guidance clarifies that the Commission will accept referrals from member states that do not even have their own jurisdiction. Of course, under certain circumstances. If the target company is a startup, a recent entrant, a nascent competitor, or a significant innovator, this can now all be taken into account when assessing the case for a referral. Also, now under the DMA, gatekeepers are obliged to inform us about their acquisitions. And that, of course, can lead to a referral through Article 22. And we have thought about this. When I first came to be the Commissioner for Competition, there's been this survey, should we change the merger threshold in order to deal with this? And the answer to this question was that, well, we will then throw out a net with very, very, very fine masks. And we'll get a lot of things that we have no need to see. And we'll add a lot of red tape to the business community. So we found this other approach, because it captures mergers that truly matters, exactly without overburdening companies or the Commission services. And both new and more traditional referrals under Article 22 play their part. Adobe Figma is an example of a tech case that came to the Commission following the traditional approach of Article 22. Qualcomm Autotalks was the first tech case that we reviewed under our new guidance. The thing is about digital mergers that they often lead to non-horizontal effects, which are common in mergers with complementary products. Some cases also leads to horizontal effects. It can be a mix of both. And we have developed our theories of harm to capture these anti-competitive effects resulting from new market realities. Because if you have a new market and you have mergers that you have to review, you of course also have to renew how you view the development of competition. In some of our recent phase 2 tech investigations, such as those into Booking's eTravely, Amazon iRobot, Adobe Figma, well, that shows that our framework is, on the one hand side, robust. At the same time, it is sufficiently flexible for our analysis to evolve, to figure out what is really going on, what is at stake in this market. So let me say a few words about our assessment of key theories of harm in digital markets, because that is key for our analysis as to can this merger happen or not. First, on ecosystem effects. They become more and more important in our merger investigations. When a company enlarges its ecosystem by acquisition, it may create or strengthen in one or more core markets. But it can also further lock in customers or encourage them to remain within the walled garden of its services. In Booking eTravely, we found that the transaction would have increased Booking's dominant position in the market for hotel online agency, the OTA services. It would have raised barrier to entry for rivals by blocking the market for flight OTAs and by reinforcing network effects. We also found that it would have sort of increased the stickiness of Booking's platform, strengthening its ability to exploit its dominant position. And here we blocked the deal after we found the remedies insufficient to address our concerns. Second, potential competition. Because in an innovation-led tech world, well, acquisition can often create these types of more horizontal concerns. And this happens when the acquiring company tries to eliminate a possible future rival. And that is when it does that in its core market through a killer acquisition. Moreover, acquisitions prevent other firms from acquiring the target. Maybe someone who could acquire it actually to muscle up, actually to compete against the incumbent. And both these effects, they have the potential to stifle innovation competition. And that, of course, is something that we have developed over the last years in order to make able to see, well, how will innovation enable competition in future markets? In Adobe Figma, we found that the transaction would have taken out a potential competitor. It would have strengthened Adobe's dominance in vector editing and raster editing. We also found that it would have eliminated an actual competitor and created a dominant position through a reverse killer acquisition in interactive product design. Adobe dropped the deal following the objection that we raised. Finally, on theories of harm, we have considered what happens if there is a risk of degrading access to an input for rivals. This is not new. This is something that we have seen ever so often in more traditional mergers. In cases, those that we examine now, the merged entity could give its own operation sole or preferential market access. Whether it would exclude or degrade access for third parties post-transaction. So in our analysis, we also look at sort of total foreclosure versus partial foreclosure, whether foreclosure would be broadly scoped or targeted towards certain specific rivals. In Amazon iRobot, we found that Amazon's online store are an important sales channel for robot vacuum cleaners. Amazon could have reduced the visibility, increased the advertising costs for iRobot's rivals on Amazon stores in certain member states. This would have made it more difficult for the competitors of iRobot actually to reach their customers, with the predictable results of higher prices, less choice, and innovation for consumers. Amazon abandoned the transaction after we raised our objections. Digital markets, they have the dynamic on their own. And I hope that I have underlined that our enforcement on those markets have to be equally dynamic. With the work on Article 22, with the Digital Markets Act, we have developed new tools, obviously, to ensure that killer acquisitions do not escape our scrutiny. And we have sharpened existing tools. We've updated our market definition notice. We have developed our theories of harm to new issues that have come up in digital markets that are relevant exactly to them over recent years. And we use these tools. We take action to make sure that digital markets continue to deliver for consumers on price, on quality, on innovation. Yet, and I think this is the good news, essentially we're the same. We investigate case by case. We try to understand markets. We develop with markets. We rely on facts. We rely on market realities, on the evidence that we can get. We take an objective position following a clear and transparent process. We are deeply anchored in the rule of law and due process. Markets be digital or completely traditional. And I think that is a really important thing here, that there is something that remains a constant. That foundation in the rule of law, in due process. And I hope that will also remain a constant, because now we have ahead of us maybe even more fast, furious market dynamics fueled by artificial intelligence. Of course, we've seen a bit before, but we do not know what we have ahead of us. And I really appreciate that we are a full community to talk about, to see, to watch for, to develop our approach when artificial intelligence becomes more and more and more ingrained in every market dynamic that we see. Always anchored in the rule of law and due process. So we're witnessing an upswing of digital M&A activity after the disruptive period of recent years. I do believe that we are well equipped to rise to the challenge. And the challenge is still the fundamental ones, to make sure that markets are open, that they are contestable. And now we have the DMA to help us do that. Success of DMA is not the success of having passed legislation. The success of DMA is to enforce legislation. And also here, being a community is absolutely essential. Because our point is that when needed, we will stop anti-competitive walls from being built. We have seen the results already. Because as history teaches us, once a wall is built, it takes an awfully long time for it to come down again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margrethe. Yeah, we've seen that exactly here in Berlin. So we have a short Q&A session now. Rikard, my colleague from Stockholm, from Sweden, is going to moderate that with Margrethe. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Andreas.
We should occupy center stage, I think.
Yeah. Well, Margrethe, thank you so much for these thought-provoking insights. I do really think that they help us to set a tone for these days. But I want to pick your brains for a few more moments, although we're not on schedule anymore. But the Commission has been very active recently in the travel and tourism sector, including the Booking e-Travel merger, which you mentioned in your speech. And of course, the rail ticketing case in Spain. And we ourselves, we have accepted commitments to boost competition for airline sales in Sweden. But at the same time, it appears, we appear to be seeing a period of consolidation in the airline industry, with the Commission taking a closer look at a number of mergers in recent months. From an enforcer's perspective, what are some of the trends and issues you see arising out of these cases? For example, the Commission has, I would say, expressed some skepticism about the sufficiency of slot allocation remedies. Is that something you see being borne out of the cases the Commission has looked at?
Well, these are obvious, really, really important cases. Everything related to travel is important for the tourism industry. It's important for the conference industry. So absolutely key that prices are competitive so that we all find that we can come here. And you're completely right to know that we have reservations when it comes to slot remedies. So when you look at the Air Korea-Asiana merger, we could only clear that once the parties had a real resolve towards our concerns. So two things happened for that merger to go along. The first one was the divestiture of the full cargo business of one of the merging parties. And the second was a new entrance to fly some of the long-haul routes that were severely affected by this merger. It's a merger of, two sort of full-scale carriers of Korea. And also, the merger can only be completed once that new entrance literally takes off. And I think that's a better and much more hands-on way to look at airline mergers. That you really need to solve competition issues. Because having followed how the slot remedies have worked, they work only under very, very specific circumstances. So it's not to exclude that we could never, ever take a slot remedy. It's just to say that the circumstances, they will have to be right for these slots to be sufficiently attractive for someone actually to take them up. And the second thing, where we also have taken remedy in the Renfe case, for us also very important because for rails to take off, and we need much more rail transport in Europe, as a customer, you need to have access also to competition on how to get the tickets. Renfe is the Spanish incumbent, and they were very reluctant, to put it diplomatically, to share their data with some of the newcomers who wanted to give customers a much better experience when buying tickets. Better ways to compare, better ways to figure out where should I go, under what conditions. So we have taken and accepted remedies for data to be exchanged in real time, and for competitors to Renfe also to get whatever Renfe is given themselves in order to future-proof the remedy, with quite a number of details actually to make it work. And as you say, we have both the Lufthansa ITA acquisition right now, and we have the EIG Europa merger, which are both phase 2 very complicated investigations.
Yeah. And of course, we've heard, we talked about Siemens Alstom before, and there has been some claims that consolidation in the airline industry is necessary to allow companies to compete globally. We've heard that before. And this is not the first time, of course, this kind of argument has been made in support of consolidation. But what, if anything, do you see as a trade-off, if there is one, between competition on the internal market and competitiveness in global markets?
Well, I don't know if there is a trade-off. No. Actually, I see that the two things, they go together. That if you want to be able to compete on a global market, you also need to be faced with competition at home. The ones who are coddled and taking care of that you shouldn't have the headwinds of world competition, well, how would they ever get the strength actually to be out there? While at the same time making sure that we protect ourselves against unfair competition. And now, of course, the airline industry is specific because we have ownership requirements to operate within Europe, but also that we have the tools of the foreign subsidies regulation to make sure that it is actually fair what is ongoing here. And the thing is that if we look back and look at the routes where there are now de facto monopolies, because we've had a lot of consolidation already in Europe. This idea that Europe has all these different airlines, that's a complete illusion, because most of them, they are either owned by one or two of them, or in very, very close alliances. There is one direction of prices, and that is up. And it would be much better if we had, stable prices for people to be able actually to take a plane, and then to figure out how to make that plane travel sustainable by using other methods. I don't think that one should say, oh, it doesn't matter, because if it's more expensive, people will fly less, and that would be good for the planet. That is not how you ensure sustainability. Sustainability is ensured by completely different means that are as important, but still it should not be that only those who have the biggest purse would be able to take a plane. Just imagine what this conference would be like if we had that kind of prices.
Yeah, fair point, very well. Turning to a topic that we will return to later in the conference, and as you mentioned in your speech, one that is no less important to consumers, but somewhat more uncharted territory for us enforcers, artificial intelligence, AI. The Commission has recently put out a call for contributions on competition in virtual worlds and generative AI that will close in the next week or so. What do you see as the Commission's next steps in this work?
But first and foremost, you shouldn't use your coffee break to write to us. Coffee break's there for networking. But if one of the panel gets a bit, you can always write us. The deadline is on the 11th of March. So please do, once the conference is over, you have a bit of time, we need the input. Because it is really so that when it comes to AI, I think we need the wisdom of the entire community in order to get it right. In other areas of dealing with AI, we are asking, for instance, for watermarking. If things are made with artificial intelligence, it should be marked that this is actually artificial. We are also asking for specific concerns if artificial intelligence is used in a situation where there is a risk of, for instance, discrimination. So can you get a mortgage? Can you be accepted to a university, for instance? Can you get insurance? And maybe we should think about some of the same things so we know when the algorithm is at work. At least we need to figure out how to see through. Because one of the things the legislator have been considering in sort of the broad discussion about the AI Act is exactly transparency. When to know that a very advanced algorithm is out there doing its job. And we will meet artificial intelligence in everything we do. We will meet it in price setting. We'll meet it in qualities, for instance, of customer service. We will meet it when it comes to innovation itself. So we will indeed meet it everywhere. So all the theories of harm I just went through, they may be hypercharged with AI sort of being part of the product. And I think we can only deal with that if we indeed draw on everyone in the community, because here we really need to go early, we need to go together, and we need to be vigilant, which are also great advice if you go hiking in a forest. So I really do hope that you will take this opportunity, and we will invite to a workshop in June to present what has been presented to us and to figure out, well, how to take that further.
Oh, that sounds excellent. Well, I guess the last question for both of us is we'll go home to our offices and think about who has jurisdiction over the Munt-Kafara cartel, but we'll leave that question out. So once again, Margrethe.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.